Nobody tells you this when you're starting out. But the thing that's been holding you back your entire life probably isn't what you think it is. It's not your background. It's not your education. It's not the connections you don't have or the money you never inherited or the opportunities that always seem to land on someone else's desk. The thing holding you back is the story you tell about where permission comes from. You've been waiting for someone to grant it. A boss, a mentor, a market, a moment. You've been standing at a door, hand raised, about to knock, and the whole time, the door was never locked. In 1963, a man who had never designed a car in his life, who had dirt under his fingernails from working on farm equipment, who had been dismissed by the most powerful figure in the automotive world as someone who should stick to tractors. That man built one of the most iconic sports car companies in history, not despite the rejection, because of it. His name was Ferruccio Lamborghini, and what he understood about ego, revenge, and the strange alchemy of being told no might be the most useful thing you hear this year. Let's talk about where you actually are right now. You have the idea. You've had it for a while, actually. You can describe it in detail. You've thought about it at 2 a.m. You've mapped out versions of it in your head during commutes and meetings and conversations where you were supposed to be paying attention to something else. But it's still just an idea. And when you're honest with yourself, really honest, in the way you only get when the room is quiet, you can feel the gap between who you are and who you'd need to be to actually do the thing. It feels enormous. It feels like the kind of distance that takes a decade to cross, maybe more. So you wait. You prepare. You take one more course, read one more book, build one more credential. You tell yourself you're getting ready. And in a way you are. But you're also doing something else. You're negotiating with fear. You're giving it what it wants, which is time, which is always the one thing fear needs most to survive. Here's what nobody wants to say. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or resources. They fail because they never fully started. They stayed in the preamble of their own story. They spent their whole lives clearing their throat. Ferruccio Lamborghini was 41 years old and already a millionaire when he walked into Enzo Ferrari's office. He wasn't there to start a revolution. He just wanted to tell someone their car was broken. What happened next changed everything. Not because of what Enzo said, but because of how Ferruccio heard it. Here's the part they leave out of the motivational posters. Ferruccio didn't start with cars. He started with almost nothing. He was born in 1916 in the Po Valley in northern Italy to farmers. His classroom was a workshop. His textbooks were engines. He dropped out of school at 16, not because he was lazy, but because he was already better at fixing machines than most people twice his age, and the classroom had nothing left to teach him. During World War II, he served as a mechanic. When the war ended, he came home with almost no money, bought a surplus military vehicle for almost nothing, and converted it into a tractor. Then he built another one, and another. By the 1950s, Lamborghini Trattori was one of the most successful agricultural equipment companies in Italy. He had built that from wreckage, literally. So by the time he could afford a Ferrari, and he could afford several, he wasn't buying status. He was buying recognition. He was a man who had crawled up from a muddy field and earned something that should have been out of reach, and he wanted to feel it. The problem was, his Ferrari kept breaking down. The clutch, specifically. It wore out faster than it should have. Ferruccio, being Ferruccio, took the car apart and realized it was using the same clutch mechanism he used in his tractors, the exact same one, which meant he knew, with absolute mechanical certainty, that it could be done better. So he went to Maranello. He asked to speak to Enzo Ferrari personally, and when he got in front of him, he told him exactly what was wrong and exactly how to fix it. Enzo Ferrari looked at this tractor builder and said, in effect, "A farmer has no business telling me how to build a car. Go back to your tractors, Ferruccio. That's your world." This is the moment most people think is the origin of Lamborghini. But it's not. That's just the story. The origin of Lamborghini is what happened inside Ferruccio's mind in the 24 hours after he walked out of that office. Because he could have agreed. He could have felt the shame of being put in his place and quietly accepted it. That's what the situation called for. That's the expected response when someone with Enzo Ferrari's status tells you that you don't belong. Instead, something specific happened in Ferruccio. He didn't just get angry. He got clear. There is a psychological concept I want you to understand because it explains almost every breakthrough in this story, and probably several that are waiting to happen in yours. I call it the insult inventory. Every significant dismissal you've received, every time someone told you that you were out of your league, that you didn't have the credentials, that your idea was naive, that you should know your place, every one of those moments left a mark. And most of the time, we respond to those marks by going smaller. We internalize the verdict. We become the version of ourselves that the person doing the dismissing decided we were. But there is another response. And it's rarer, and it's more powerful, and it doesn't require you to be fearless. It just requires you to be furious in the right direction. Ferruccio Lamborghini didn't go home and feel sorry for himself. He went home and did an audit. He thought about exactly what he knew, exactly what he could build, exactly what resources he had, and exactly what gap existed in the market between what Ferrari was offering and what drivers actually needed. And he realized something that should have been obvious but wasn't. Enzo Ferrari was building cars for racing first and drivers second. The road cars were essentially compromises. They were fast but brutal, mechanical but imprecise, impressive but punishing. And there were buyers, serious, wealthy, passionate buyers, who wanted something different. Something refined without being tame. Something fast without being feral. Ferruccio knew how to build that. He had been building precision machines his entire life. He understood tolerances. He understood engineering. He understood what separated a machine that lasted from a machine that didn't. The insult inventory isn't about revenge, exactly. Revenge implies you're still reacting to the other person. What Ferruccio did was colder and more effective than revenge. He stopped caring about Enzo entirely. He used the dismissal as a diagnostic. It told him exactly where the gap was. And then he walked through it. This is the part of the story that gets collapsed in the telling, and the collapsing is where the real lesson gets lost. Because the way people tell it, Ferruccio left Ferrari's office and somehow conjured a sports car company from pure spite. And that version makes for a great 2-minute video. But it's not what happened, and the reality is far more instructive. The first thing Ferruccio did was build a team before he built anything else. He went after the best engineers he could find, and deliberately, systematically, he targeted Ferrari's own people, not out of spite, out of intelligence. Ferrari's engineers knew exactly what Ferrari's cars were missing because they built them every day. Ferruccio hired Giotto Bizzarini, who had designed the Ferrari 250 GTO. He brought in Gianpaolo Dallara, who would later become one of the most respected names in motorsport engineering. He found people who already had the knowledge and gave them something Ferrari hadn't: freedom. This is the first principle of what I call the spite to structure method. When you've been told you can't play in someone else's game, your first move is not to build the game. It's to build the team that makes the game possible. Ferruccio was a mechanic and a businessman. He knew what he didn't know, and rather than pretending otherwise, he surrounded himself with people who knew exactly what he lacked and let them be extraordinary at it. The second thing he did was refuse to be a cheaper version of his competitor. Every instinct in normal business logic would say, find what the market leader is doing, undercut the price, capture the value-conscious buyer. Ferruccio did the opposite. He decided his car would be better than a Ferrari, not cheaper, more refined, more livable. The engine would go in the front, not the rear, because front-engine cars handle better on normal roads. The gearbox would be built in-house, from scratch, because the Ferrari gearbox was the problem he'd complained about in the first place. The interior would be designed for someone who was driving to a dinner, not just burning laps on a circuit. This is the second principle. Don't compete at the level where you were dismissed. Compete at the level above it. The way you beat someone who told you you're not good enough isn't to prove you're almost as good. It's to prove the category they defined was too small. The third thing is where most people would have stopped, but Ferruccio accelerated. The first Lamborghini GT prototype was shown at the Turin Motor Show in 1963. The response was extraordinary, but the car on the show floor was, in ways Ferruccio hadn't fully admitted yet, still unfinished. The chassis was wrong. The suspension geometry needed work. A lesser man, a man more concerned with the appearance of success than the reality of it, would have shipped it anyway and managed the fallout later. Ferruccio pulled it back. He had his engineers rebuild it correctly. He delayed the production launch. He absorbed the cost in time and money and momentum. This is the third principle. Your ego about the timeline is the enemy of the thing you're actually building. Speed feels like confidence, but precision is what endures. The car that came out of Ferruccio's factory the following year was the 350 GT, and it was not a rough draft. It was ready, and it sold. There's a deeper thing happening in the Lamborghini story, and it's the thing that makes it genuinely relevant to you rather than just a good tale about a stubborn Italian man with a grudge. Ferruccio Lamborghini, at the moment he walked into Enzo Ferrari's office, believed he was a tractor manufacturer who also happened to own a sports car. That was his identity. Wealthy, successful, mechanically brilliant, but defined by the industry he'd built his name in. When Enzo dismissed him, he was reinforcing that identity. Stay in your lane. You are what you've already made yourself. What Ferruccio did in the weeks and months that followed was not a business decision. It was an identity decision. He decided, quietly and completely, that he was a car manufacturer, not going to be one someday. Was one, right now, with no factory yet, and no model yet, and no history in the category. He decided first, and then he built everything else to match the decision. This is the move that most people never make, and it's why most people stay where they are. You are not waiting to feel like the person you're trying to become. You will never feel like that person in advance. That feeling of legitimacy, of belonging, of deserved confidence, comes after the work, not before it. Ferruccio didn't feel like a sports car manufacturer when he hired Bizzarini. He acted like one. The feeling followed, maybe 2 years later when the first 350 GT rolled off the floor. Identity is not a destination. It's a decision you make before you have the evidence to justify it, and then you make it again the next morning, and the morning after that. The question underneath every single thing in this video is not, when will I be ready? It is this. What decision, if I made it right now, would make everything else make sense? In 1966, 3 years after Enzo Ferrari told him to go back to his tractors, Ferruccio Lamborghini unveiled the Miura at the Geneva Motor Show. It had a mid-mounted V12 engine. It could hit 280 kilometers per hour. Every automotive journalist in the room lost their mind. Many of them called it the most beautiful car ever built. Enzo Ferrari never publicly acknowledged Lamborghini as a rival. He didn't have to. The car spoke. Here is what I want you to hold on to when this video ends and the ordinary world comes flooding back in. Ferruccio Lamborghini didn't win because he was angrier than Enzo Ferrari, or smarter, or luckier. He won because he understood something fundamental about how permission works. Nobody gives it to you. You don't earn it through credentials or tenure or the right connections. You take it, carefully, deliberately, with full knowledge of what you're doing and why, by deciding you already have it, and then building something that makes the decision undeniable. The tractor mechanic decided he was a car manufacturer. The car manufacturer built the Miura. The Miura made the decision permanent. The sequence matters. The decision comes first. Always first. You already know what decision is waiting for you. You've known for a while, probably. The question is whether the fear of being wrong about it is more powerful than the certainty of what it costs you to keep waiting. Ferruccio Lamborghini was wrong about a lot of things. He made expensive mistakes, he brought in partners who nearly ruined the company, and he eventually sold it, which is a part of the story nobody puts on the poster. But he was not wrong about this. The clutch in the Ferrari was broken. He knew how to fix it. And when the man whose whole identity depended on being the best refused to listen, Ferruccio did the only logical thing. He built a better car. What's your better car? Start building it. If you loved this story, like this video and subscribe to this channel. I will be back soon with another interesting tale from the world of billions.